ready.
Okay, what are we doing today? You look ready.
So today we're doing interiors, and I know that deals with floors and thresholds and doorways and things related to inside the home. But for someone that has mobility issues, and particularly dealing with ALS, sometimes getting around inside the house can feel like you're climbing a mountain. So I thought I'd come prepared.
Well, thanks for being so prepared. I guess let's go look at some interiors.
All right, let's go do it. All right, so we're here in your home, and I'm back to the tools I'm a little bit more familiar with and all that climbing gear. But tell us a little bit about your story on living in this home with ALS.
Sure. So our situation's probably a lot different than many other families diagnosed, in that Matthew got his diagnosis very quickly, which enabled us to be able to start preparing and planning. And we had the time to go look for a house that was going to fit some of our needs.
So what were some of the things that you looked for coming into a house?
Yeah, we knew we didn't want a lot of stairs to get in and out of the home. Again, we've talked about that in the ramp episode. 2, we wanted the flooring. We knew we wanted solid floors, not carpet, no trip hazards. So this house already had hardwood floors and the widened doorways, and the bathroom wasn't going to take much to remodel. But when we tried to cut corners, and I don't want to say cut corners, we just didn't know that keeping our slippery tile was going to be saving money, but really isn't the safest choice or option.
Let's go and take a quick look at some of the things in your house that were good, and then that'll give us a baseline for when we're looking at talking about other projects.
Let's do it.
So I see your back door, rather than having a slider, which is common on patios, you've got a door that swings in.
Yeah, so here it was an easy fix. We fixed the doorknob so it was a lever, and it was already wide enough to get through. Here you go, Jada. Go on out.
Perfect. All right, let's go take a look at some other doorways.
Okay. All right, Jim. You're here in my bedroom and bathroom. And do you see this door? What's different about this door?
So what I noticed right away with this door is what's not common is it's a double. You got a French door going in the bathroom. That wasn't here originally, was it?
No, and this door, if you look up, it actually doesn't go all the way up to, right?
Yeah, that's to make for a lift system that would go from
That's right. We originally planned on having a ceiling lift, but in our situation, we actually didn't prefer it. We preferred a Hoyer lifts, but everybody's different. They got to find out what works for them. Going back, given the choice, I would actually not do this tile, and I would do a non-slip or a slip-resistant product. And if it was another tile, I would have kept the grout lines so much smaller. So with Hoyer lifts or any kind of small wheels, hitting those grout lines, it helps with transfers and such.
Well, thanks for letting us take that tour through your house and seeing what you have learned and how you've been able to manage the flow of the home modifications to meet what the needs of ALS are going to be.
In our other 2 episodes, we talked about ramps
and
we talked about bathroom remodels. I feel like we addressed those because those are the first 2 things that families with an ALS diagnosis should really think about. Those are priorities. So let's talk a little bit deeper into interiors, doorways, transitions, and the do's and don'ts, tips and tools we've learned along the way in this episode.
Yeah, and probably the best way to summarize those is let's look at doorways and all the different doorways. If it's, width, what makes sense, what doesn't. We touched on it with going in and out of the bathroom, but we'll deal with bedrooms, living rooms, hallways, what makes sense to address, what maybe can be left behind.
And why carpet is not your best friend.
That's right. And we'll talk about flooring. Carpet, does it make sense or not? What types of flooring are out there?
And I think we should talk about some trip hazards and things that maybe power wheelchairs are great at, which is going over smooth surfaces, and not great at, such as pulling up rugs and transition spaces. A lot of people want to use rugs to help with the noise and stuff, but it's not always such a good option.
Let's hit those. So we're going to take a look. Let's start with doorways.
When we're talking about interior doors, where are the spaces you want your pals to go? The person with ALS, are they only getting into your bedroom and bathroom and they don't need to get into the closet? Save your money, save your time. Don't do the doorway in the closet. You just need them to be able to get in and out of their living space. Bedroom, bathroom, and any other door. Maybe they have their own office or their own guest room that they want to kind of go in and have their computer space. So when you're looking at interiors, where is the most important living space for this person with this disease? So that we're cost effective and time effective. Time is always of the essence with this disease, whether it's the progression of the disease or just the fact that you don't want the contractor in all this upheaval in a very stressful time in everybody's life anyway. So really ask yourself these questions, right? You got to get in and out of the house safely. We talked about that. You got to be able to get to the commode and a shower, right? For hygiene purposes, yes, bed baths are possible, but if it's within the budget and the time, definitely consider the bathroom. Then start looking in your living space, right? Where is the person with the disease? Are they walking? Where are they walking to? What's in their way? Don't leave trip hazards. Don't expect them to be able to navigate spaces as the disease progresses. Once you get to the wheelchair, where do they need to get through, right? Well, those are the things that we're looking at.
So when we're looking at door widenings, the things that we got to consider is what kind of space we have to create the extra width for the door. Most of the time it's going to be fairly simple. Most bedrooms, at least that we've come across, are not going to be load-bearing walls. If they are, we're going to have to account for possibly building a header up above. When you're widening a door, you need to have 2 inches wider than what the door actually is. So we need a 38-inch rough opening. So that means we're going to have to take the tape measure and measure out, do we have 38 inches from one side to the other?
And that's for the door frame to just go sitting.
That's for the door frame to just get set in there. All right, so if we're looking at widening a door, this is a good example. So this door is 30 inches wide, and it's not going to quite be able to make good for a wheelchair going in and out. So the first thing that we're going to look at is there any electrical outlets that are close to this? And we can see that that's a little bit of a distance away. So can we come this direction? Now, ideally, to get a 36-inch door in here, what we're going to want to do is make this opening 38 inches, which you can see we have the space if we're coming over on this side. We see that this is a wall. We'll want to make sure that it's not a bearing wall. If it is, we have to consider a header up above. If not, we can just make our opening wider by simply pulling off the trim, removing the door, cutting the extra width, put the door back in and the trim in, and we've got a wider door ready to go through. One thing we could also do with this door, if widening it doesn't make sense, is one of these extension hinges where it would sit just on the inside and replace this hinge, and when that door opens, it opens out of the way of the door frame. So that puts the hinge point out here. So now we have the full width of the opening going through. Now, once we widen this door, a thing that we're going to have to address is there's going to be a new hole on the floor where this door frame used to be. So because we have hardwood, the easiest way to patch that in is going to be get a wood that's going to be very similar to this and just blend it in. It's always going to look patched in until the floors are just redone, but that's the best way to deal with a door that's being wide.
So what do you think is the smallest door that's ideal for somebody that's remodeling for ALS?
That is going to be a depends question on how wide, whatever they think, and who is the person that's going to be in the chair.
See, I would think minimum would be 32.
32 is going to be the minimum that I know is probably going to work unless it's a very large size chair. We have had some scenarios where there's been 30-inch doors. We've done extended hinges, and those have been able to work. I mean, just an average walker is only going to be 24 inches for the smaller ones, but an average chair, unless it's a small version.
What I'm hearing you say, though, is if they have like a 20-inch doorway in their bathroom and money is an issue, they can use offset hinges, move that door, get a couple inches for them, and they've saved themselves the contractor fee of widening the door and all that. But if that's not possible, then a barn door would probably be the next ideal. Is that what I'm hearing?
So if we're looking for the least expensive routes, if we don't want to widen the whole door, we can look at just taking the door and everything out altogether and just leaving that rough opening and doing a very thin finish or trim piece on that rough opening so that they have it. It may be possible to put a slider door, but slider doors have their pros and cons as well. They're not going to be as private because they typically don't seal up very tight.
So
And
by slider, you're referring to barn doors.
Barn
Barn doors
doors,
don't
exactly.
actually seal. Yeah.
Correct. They also don't lock very well that you can adjust from two sides. So we're talking about the other people in the home that are going to be using it. If it's a bathroom door, like you can latch it from the inside, but there's not a way to unlatch it from the outs. It's not a standard lock.
But maybe for a master bedroom, that's not as big of a concern. So the barn door is just easy to put in the track system. And
Or if you have a master bathroom that's inside of a bedroom, the slider
doors,
door might make more sense there. But if it's out in the public, like where you've got your bathroom off of your main
a shared
living area,
space.
a shared
shared
space. Like I said, there's typically a gap. They don't seal up real tight. Also, you have to have enough space on the outside of that wall that door can slide. If you have other things along that wall, pictures, windows, anything else that's on that wall, it's going to be covered when you have that slider door. Yeah. Now let's talk pocket doors very quickly, because a lot of people ask me about pocket doors. We don't install many pocket doors. The reason for that is there's a significant amount of remodeling that needs to go into making a pocket door really work well. And as we found, that people that have mobility issues, especially if they don't have the strength in their arms, pocket doors can be very heavy to slide back and forth.
Yeah, I would never recommend a pocket door if you can help it, just because if the person with the disease is walking and still able to open and close the door, they might be weakening or losing mobility. And once they get to a point where they have the power wheelchair, how are they going to get in and out if that door is kind of closed or trying? Yeah, it's just not really a good fit.
Not a good fit. Other things to consider, speaking of good fit, is the doors. Oftentimes doors swing into the room.
Yeah.
Sometimes we make doors swing out.
I will say that from my experience with the VA and the grant that they gave my husband and I to remodel our bathroom, one of the prerequisites or the big no-no was the door swinging in the bathroom. And the reason why is because if you are the person with ALS, and unfortunately this happens, there's falls, there's trips, there's unforeseen things. And if you're in that bathroom and you fall, and that door can't open for somebody to get to you. So the ideal, and many fire departments would recommend this too, is when you're talking about accessibility in the home, you're having the door swing out so that if there's an emergency, somebody can still get inside quickly. So since this is the interiors episode, let's talk a little bit more interiors, like floors.
Floors, and probably what better place to talk floors than to go to an actual flooring store.
Great idea.
And see what we can find.
Should we go look at some floors?
Yeah, let's go take a look.
Let's go.
So we are here at United Floor Covering.
In Spokane, Washington.
In Spokane. And this is the place that I first got introduced to really dealing with flooring that was going to meet the non-slip standards, because it's not easy to know that you have to change things and then figure out who has the knowledge based on where to go.
Well, I think overwhelmingly, most families would tell you remodeling your home is stress-inducing, anxiety-filled. There's so many choices. Now add that money needs to go as far as possible and check all those boxes for accessibility and how to plan for a disease such as ALS. So tell me what we've got here. Good, what you would do, what you wouldn't do.
So remember back when we talked a while ago that most of the time in remodeling construction, cosmetic or how it looks is the primary driver.
Yes, everybody wants it to look.
And while we do want to look pretty, our priorities are a little bit different. We want safety first, function, affordability, and how quick can we do it. And as we know from the onset, carpet is not our friend. And you were describing kind of what happens to an ALS individual in dealing with carpet.
I think, if you're looking at that scenario where a family is looking to remodel their family home and they're picking this beautiful carpet, that's amazing. It's beautiful. Anybody would love to have this.
Or if they already have this in their home.
And if they already had it, yeah. But if you have ALS or you have a loved one with ALS, if they're still able to walk, as they lose the ability to pick their foot up which is often called foot drop with this disease as it progresses, this becomes a trip hazard. It's actually more difficult to pick the foot up. It's kind of like walking through sand.
Now, is that true even on the flatter?
No, I think with the more durable indoor-outdoor kind of carpeting, that's a little bit...
The commercial grade?
Commercial grade. I think that's probably a more appropriate choice. But if you had a choice, I would say don't do either and do the LVP or hardwood floor if you can. If it's not in your budget, work with what you've got.
Because even the pad underneath this, it's just, even if someone's in a chair and they're not walking.
Yeah, it'll slow the chair down. It'll create drag no matter what.
So talking about the different kinds of hard surfaces, of course, there's hardwood floors like we had back here. You have hardwood floors in your house. Mm-hmm. The pros is they're very solid. The downside is they get kind of chewed up from the wheels.
There's a lot of scuff marks and, but most people...
Yeah. Very functional, but from a wear standpoint, cosmetically, it's going to look beat up. Mm-hmm. These products here, like the engineered hardwoods, like here's an old one right out of your 1990s era. So these are good. They're hard. Some of them can be kind of slick. More of the current ones now have a texture to them, which is good. Very popular also right now is the LVP, the vinyl planks. Very durable. Water resistant, easy to clean up. You can see there's a lot of different color. There's hundreds of different choices.
I see you've got some linoleum over here. What do you think of linoleum?
So here's what happens with linoleum. If you already have it, I'm not going to recommend tearing it out. But as far as installing it, what happens with this is as the wheels go over this from a chair, the weight will actually wave and make this stuff kind of be puckered and wavy and wrinkle it and can even create it to fold over itself and tear
and become another trip hazard.
And especially once you have it start peeling, then it keeps peeling up. Mm-hmm. So not recommended that you would put this in. At least it might be better than a padded carpet, but it's not going to be a good first choice.
So how about we just say no to linoleum? Probably not great for carpet. These are your better options.
Of course, another good option is tile, as we know. As we talked about in the bathrooms, we want to make sure that it is slip resistant.
So learn from my mistake.
Yes.
And make sure that if you're going to keep the tile in there, make sure that nobody's at risk of falling. And then grout lines. Grout lines.
You want to have tighter grout lines. You don't want those.
Yeah, I have the 1/4 inch, I believe.
And then they kind of come up as you're going over those. So the other thing that we need to remember when changing the flooring is those transitions between an existing floor and the new floor. We want to make sure that we build those very wheelchair friendly.
Yeah, so we not only want to think about wheelchairs, though, we want to talk about for families that are in the beginning of the diagnosis where their toes can catch on things.
Correct.
The walker, the cane, things like that. So if you are walking through the house and trying to see if it's accessible, be sure and look for situations such as that.
Yep.
And
then finally, we've got the floor vents. We've got air returns, floor vents. Ideally, it's nice to be able to take, if you're redoing the whole floor, if you can move that vent into a wall, then we don't even have to deal with it on the floor.
Okay.
If that's not an option, there are products that exist. So these engineered and designed to handle the load of a wheelchair going over it without getting too beat up. And they come different heights and adjustable heights, so you can match them to an LVP, a hardwood floor, a tile floor. So those are just some of the things to consider.
In this episode, we talked about interiors, namely doors, doorways, and floors.
And the challenges that people can have, what seems like not much, can seem insurmountable if we don't address them the right way.
And I think we talked about ideal situations as well as, what do you got to do if that's just not in the budget and that's not where you want to use your funds.
That's right.
Yeah.
And as always, we have to remember to check with local building codes and permitting rules.
Always check with your local building codes and permitting rules. And as always, we would like to give a huge shout out to ALS Finding a Cure We Care, because without them, this wouldn't be possible.
All right. Okay. Ready? We'll talk about that. I don't know when we'll talk about it or where we'll talk about it, but we will talk about that. I'm ready.